Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
It's like there's something happening here. And what it is ain't exactly obvious.
The great boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, the CEO of the crypto company Celsius, Alex Mashinsky, your boy, has halted all withdrawals on a day where cryptocurrencies are tumbling. You're the big crypto guy of the podcast. You still think like the fucking blockchain is the answer to all of our problems?
If only we had the blockchain, our podcast would be so much more successful.
I know.
I don't know how, but somehow having the blockchain on the back end of our podcast would have made us famous.
Well, we're doing NFTs of the podcast.
I didn't know this, man. What a scam! You know what this reminds me of? It's like in Argentina, they're just like banks would just take like bank days because inflation was so rampant and the value was tumbling. And so there's just days that you just, you
couldn't get your
withdraw.
money.
No, you just can't get your money. It's so crazy.
The funny thing about this guy, your boy, Alex Mashinsky, is literally the day before people were expressing like they're not going to let us withdraw the money. And he was chiding them. He's like, why are you like spreading fake news and disinformation? Name me one person that has had trouble withdrawing from Celsius. That was literally yesterday. And then today they just like stopped giving any withdrawals to anybody.
You know, what's crazy is crypto is supposed to be, and we're going to get, I'm sure, email from all these crypto people. So, but I don't want to hear it.
We really don't care. We don't care one way. We don't care one way or the other.
No. But the very like promise of this was this sort of decentralized, untraceable. Mm-hmm. Now it's just like these centralized companies that create their own stupid coins and services. Like I actually bought crypto, I don't know when, like a year and a half ago or some 2 years ago. And at its peak, I had like doubled my money, and I just opened up my Coinbase after you asked that question. And it's like down like $500 lower than I had put in. I've just like lost $500 in the last 2 weeks or something.
It really is like what you were saying. It's like Animal Farm. You remember Animal Farm, where it's like at first it's this new thing that's going to like revolutionize and reform, and all the like corruption will be, but by the end you can't tell like human from pig anymore.
Right. The thing is, like, in the ideal, you were supposed to have, say, Bitcoin, and you would have your personal wallet that was encrypted, and it lived physically on one of your hard drives. And, you could go to the actual dark web, not the intellectual dark web. You could go to the actual dark web and use
like Eric
those.
Weinstein or
yeah, you could buy mushrooms from Eric Weinstein. But nobody wanted to do that because it's a pain in the ass. Like there are people who actually have hard drives that they forgot their passwords for it, and there's just like millions of dollars of like Bitcoin in it. And it's inscrutable and it's a barrier to all the non-serious nerds. So then they just start things like Coinbase, where you're not really exchanging crypto in the way that it was intended. You're just sort of playing the market of the value of the crypto. Right. And it's just like completely taken over by just, I know you don't like this word, but shyster. I don't know why you don't like it.
It's very anti-Semitic, but it does seem like the purity of it has been long transcended, and now it's just like a total like unapologetic Ponzi scheme.
It is, and it's like, and And Elon Musk can just tweet about the, Dogecoin, which was like a joke cryptocurrency, and pump up the value and make a ton of money on it.
Yeah.
The rich
And then
get
they just
richer.
won't let the poor suckers that bought like
can't
all of
withdraw.
this. They just like, no, we're not giving you your money. You can't. You have to just watch the market tank and all your money like disappear. Like, and we're not regulated. That was the whole point. So like
Right.
nobody can stop us from doing this.
That's right.
One of my really good friends, he knows somebody who had like 200,000, but he just lost the password.
Yeah.
And like that would 100% is something that I would do if I had it. I would definitely lose the password. Like then there's just nothing you can do. It's like when we lost the audio for that episode. It's like there's nothing.
just
There's
nothing.
nothing that will get it back.
Yeah, it's a desperate feeling. I know a podcaster, Leo Laporte. He's a pretty well-known tech podcaster, and he has a hard drive that is just sitting there. He has like enough Bitcoin that would have been worth like $750,000 by now. He's pretty just like nonchalant about it. He's like, it wasn't worth that much.
Yeah.
When I first got it, but he completely forgot the password. And if he tries to enter too many times, like to enter
Right.
the password too many times, it'll actually lock him out for good.
I heard that too,
It's just sitting there.
Permanently
so he's
shut
been
out.
like almost a millionaire. I would feel better if it tanked, if I had one of those hard drives. sitting
Totally,
around. I
of
would
course.
be rooting for
Yeah.
it to tank. Yeah, it's just gambling on something that's less stable than college basketball. It's at least college basketball the bookies will pay it out.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
There are
like,
consequences if they don't.
that's the good side of regulation is corrupt and inefficient and incompetent and all, like all the problems with it are true, but that does provide some kind of security for you.
Right. Like the FDIC, like
Exactly.
if someone robs the bank, you're not shit out of luck.
The other like funny thing about it is that it's like also destroying the environment. So it's not
Yeah.
even just defrauding people.
Right, which is crazy. Like, so we remember the 2008 crash that was a result of terrible financial practices of swapping mortgages. Like
Our Zoomer audience probably was
Probably
very young
was
when this happened.
yeah,
But yeah.
you probably remember your parents crying.
Yeah.
when-
And then getting really fucking angry, really pissed when the banks got bailed out. Probably hit you, like it was
Right.
nothing personal. It wasn't because they don't love you.
But at least at the end of that, there were like more houses in the world, and whatever hit that
Right.
the environment took was a hit of like putting all that work into
Right.
deforesting to build houses.
You're right. Like it does leave a trace. Sometimes the trace when these things collapse is negative, but at least it's a trace. At least it existed in the first place.
Right.
It wasn't just just churning out numbers. And
The only thing crypto has left a trace on is that there are going to be a bunch of just like graphics cards that people bought to like run these crypto things. And yeah.
What's incredible is like you remember the Super Bowl and like Matt Damon and Larry fucking David, like of all people doing and like it just keeps
Spike
going.
Lee. Did you ever see
Spike Lee,
Lee's?
yeah.
Oh man.
How do you feel about that now if you're one of these people? And like, because you didn't need the money. They probably just offered them so much money. And they'll
Super
just
Bowl,
get like,
yeah.
I'll just give $10 million to GiveWell or something. And then like to ease my conscience and like pocket the other 40.
Yeah, it's painful. We're gonna look back on this era and just be like, what were we all smoking? It's like tulip mania, but for weird nerd shit. It doesn't make any sense. It gives me developing country vibes to know that there are people who can't take their money out, just like in Argentina when I was a kid.
Right.
There's just something deeply wrong with the way things are going.
It's not good, especially if you have, it's just not good, period.
Well, you know what is good is that we're going to do an opening segment
Yeah.
about a paper that we had read that we thought wasn't very good and might lead to funny conversation. But the moral saints, the moral heroes that we are,
This should restore your faith in the human spirit right now. what David is about to tell you.
yeah, we made a last minute call not to do this because the lead author was a student, and it turns out that it was their honors project, and we don't want to shit on anybody like that.
Yeah.
It would have been funny though.
It would have been funny. So, like, imagine, like, conjure up in your mind a very funny opening segment, but then also think about the moral virtue of two, older professors not wanting to heap the scorn on a young student.
Us tenured fat cats, as people have liked to refer to.
Right. Saying academia is good or not as bad or not obviously as bad as industry or something like that, like, that's not going to win you a lot of praise.
It's like one of the most controversial things you could say, apparently.
Yeah. And it's true. It's like, I get it. Like, I 100% get that, for two people who it's happened to have worked out for, two white males, whatever, all that shit, even if what we're saying is reasonable, it's like, still, fuck these guys.
Yeah, and I maintain that my primary point was that industry is actually bad.
So one thing we talked about, but we weren't prepared to do was just an idea called Substack Starters, where we give an opinion, a belief that we honestly have, at least to some degree, that we think could lead us to have a profitable Substack.
Right. So like, what ideas are floating around in our head that would be a great grift for opening up our own Substack? But yeah, it had to be. It couldn't just be joke like for the Journal of Controversial Ideas. We just made some stuff up. This would have to be like, what do you really believe that might be able to get that Substack off the ground? Mm-hmm. Sign up for my newsletter.
And I don't think either of us are prepared. I had one idea just literally based on something I saw today on, I don't know. Do you have anything?
Well, I again didn't feel prepared until I was at a wedding this weekend, actually Paul Bloom's wedding. Uh-huh. And I was talking to somebody about music, and it turns out that the claim that anything musical there might be some sort of innate basis for musical appreciation, not even the ability to play an instrument or anything like that, but that something like melodies, like our aesthetic appreciation of certain harmonies or melodies versus cacophonies, that it might be just something that we're quote unquote hardwired with, is apparently a very controversial idea. So I'm willing to stake my flag in the claim that some things are universal and innate. And I think that might be enough.
Wow. So just full on eugenics is what you're saying. It's just like, let's just, weed out the people who don't have the proper genetic appreciation of certain harmonies.
Like shoot them. Yeah, I'm in a department where any whiff of making a claim that something is innate would get me scorn. And I used to joke that my colleagues didn't even believe that arms were innate. And I made that joke to one of my colleagues. He didn't even laugh. He just launched into a description, an explanation for why that particular claim didn't make sense in the context. So I was like, no.
I actually have one socially constructed arm.
Does it work better or worse than the other one?
It really depends.
Is it the one you jerk off with?
That's the one. No, wait, that's probably the more hereditary one. Or whatever.
The socially constructed one is lazier.
Yeah.
Somehow.
No, well, it just thinks you're not supposed to do that, or at least quite as often, But yeah, then the other one's fuck that. This is in me. This is it's unchangeable. Because as we know, anytime there's any kind of genetic
that's right.
Relationship, that means immutable. It's unchangeable. But with socially constructed things are completely and totally alterable.
Yeah, and anything genetic is obviously correlated with race and gender.
Right.
So what was yours? Were you gonna turf your way to Substack?
Yeah, right. Mine is trans people are ruining women's sports. That's mine.
There's just too many of those Substacks by now,
I know. It's hard to break into the trans people.
You have to find something else that trans people are ruining, because I guess it's very popular to blame them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What else? Stranger Things. They're ruining Stranger Things.
Wait, is there a trans character in Stranger Things?
I don't know, but or no. Here, this was just honestly true. I don't hold this against trans people. I have absolutely no issue. But they were responsible for Ted Lasso season 2.
They were in the writer's room. You don't even know for sure, but they like sounds
No,
like
they
it.
weren't. I don't think so. Like actually, and I don't think there's a trans character on the show. I just mean that the general kind of not really knowing like what's a man and what's a woman that just led to.
Unforeseeable consequences to these political opinions.
Exactly, but it has to be called out on my Substack. No, the thing that I actually believe is that I think could start me a Substack. Maybe it's probably almost all of my COVID beliefs. Specifically, the thing I was saying I saw in the Atlantic today is like because they have a lot of COVID hysterics. The headline is of this article: a negative COVID test has never been so meaningless. A string of negatives can still presage a clear as day positive. It's like literally nothing will satisfy these people. It's just like nothing is good enough. Like you can get vaccinated, boosted, like all of that shit, which was supposed to be the thing that's and you're supposed to be testing and you're supposed to be, and it just doesn't matter. It's like they'll still be like, why are you not taking this seriously anymore? Like, what's wrong with you? But like the idea that like just like negative at this point with like COVID tests, like what do you want people to do if like you don't even want them to test because it's meaningless, and in fact if you test negative a few times in a row, that's like like you're probably positive.
That's extra evidence that you're positive.
Yeah, it's just like and I'm sure maybe some of these questions are answered in the article itself. I'm not denying that, but still.
So was your analysis going to be like, if you follow the money, you'll see that they're trying to circulate COVID hysteria to get more clicks? Or do you think that it's not even tied to that anymore? Now it's just become a political position that's like functionally independent of whatever.
Yeah, I've actually thought about that question. It's a good question. Like, it doesn't seem to track well with money, like to be all worked up about COVID. I mean, it did for for like Pfizer and Moderna and, to a lesser extent to my vaccine of choice, Johnson & Johnson. But that part of it is over now. And so like all this stuff I think is more... It taps into a kind of American psyche that I think is definitely of like the upper middle classes, of just being like scared of anything and like always thinking that nothing is being taken seriously. Like crime now, like there's this group of people think right now, like walking out of your house, you're taking your life into your own hands. So you go on Nextdoor and people will be saying it's the fucking Wild West out there. It's like a nice neighborhood of Houston. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like, I think this is just like a part of people's psychology that then can be exploited for clicks and stuff like that. But there's not some deeper reason where like, some massive corporation. It's more just the Atlantic wanting clicks.
It's interesting because the fear of doing things, just like the fact that the world is threatening, was I thought for so long something associated with conservative beliefs, that the way to get conservatives going is to do that, the political ad showing the nuclear bomb going off with the little girl. Remember that?
Or like Willie Horton or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. The conservatives are the clutching their purses kinds of people. But it just doesn't cut so neatly that way anymore. It's sort of weird that COVID has become something that goes in such the opposite direction. Where I remember being at my uncle's funeral in South Carolina at the height of the pandemic. Nobody was wearing a mask. Just nobody. Just weird. Like you were just.
Yeah, because like masks aren't the be all end all. It turns out.
Yeah.
But so like I do think like with this issue, I have opinions that are more outside of the mainstream, but that some people are like very passionate about,
Yeah.
Even though I'm not like super passionate about.
You're more about bicycle helmets.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I should have just done that, but now it's over because I've won.
Sharks. Yeah, I don't have. I don't have much more to contribute. I was gonna ask whether libertarian beliefs. Like I have some libertarian beliefs that I think would be contra my people. But now I don't even know anymore. Like, is it even controversial to say that all drugs should be legalized and regulated? Like,
No, I don't think so. It's
not
not going to get you a Substack. You know, I think you should stick to your like pro eugenics position.
Yeah, I think so. I'll even be willing to say that a large part of intelligence is heritable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have said that, and somehow you've like skirted out of, you know, like that's good thing about not writing. You know, it's just like so
true.
much harder to get your scandalous takes on like race and IQ.
That said, why don't we talk about flow? We didn't even say what we're talking about.
Oh man,
it's gonna be the worst, most rambly intro for you to edit. But yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll be right back to talk about flow. And now a word from our sponsor, longtime sponsor, BetterHelp Online Therapy. You know, it feels like we're busier than ever these days, and sometimes it seems like life is just one stress or anxiety producing thing after another just piling on, and it's so easy to get burned out. If you feel a lack of motivation, or maybe if you feel detached or constantly tired, you know that feeling like you're moving through molasses when you walk or just stand up? All these feelings can be signs of burnout and stress. BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to take your physical and emotional health seriously. You spend a lot of time doing things for other people at your job, at home. It's important to prioritize yourself too. Talking with someone, an unbiased observer, a trained unbiased observer, trained to help people discover the sources of their stress and anxiety and some effective ways of addressing it, that can make such a big difference. I know so many people who've been helped by therapy in ways that they never thought possible. Everyone is so much more open about going to therapy these days. I just watched the new Stavi Baby special, Stavros, on YouTube. He's talking in the comedy special, about how much therapy helps. It's really one of the great changes of the last few years that people are so much more open about the ways that therapy has helped them. And BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to ever see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Very Bad Wizards listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/VBW. That's BetterHelp.com/VBW. Thanks, as always, to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time of the episode where we like to take a moment to thank all of our listeners, our community of supporters, for everything that you do, including engaging in conversation with us, emailing us, engaging in conversation with each other. We really appreciate it, and that community is, as we always say, what keeps us going. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us, verybadwizards@gmail.com. We, again, always read every message, even if we don't have time to get to them all. You can tweet to us at Tamler or at Peas. You can join our Reddit lively Reddit community, reddit.com/r/verybadwizards, where you can not only get to interact with us every once in a while, but interact with each other and argue amongst yourselves, which is the best kind of arguing as far as
It doesn't involve
concerns.
you.
Exactly. You can visit our Instagram page. Go ahead and follow us there. Just at Very Bad Wizards. Rate us on Apple Podcasts if you can, if you are willing. So give us whatever rating you want, but you can leave us a review. That actually matters. Just help other people find us, or just tell somebody about our podcast. Maybe that's the best way to do it. And finally, you can listen to us or subscribe to us on Spotify. We think that matters too. I think it matters increasingly.
Yes. And tell one person or tell 5 people, but tell them to also tell 5 people. It'll be like
that's sort of multi-level thing.
Exactly. And then we'll attach an NFT to it at some point.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Or if you'd like to not do that, get involved in all that, but you want to still support us in more tangible ways, you can give us a one-time or recurring donation on PayPal. You can go buy our swag. All of this, by the way, is on our support page at verybadwizards.com. So you can buy swag there. You can also become one of our beloved Patreon supporters. And we're so grateful to all of them, and we try to return our gratitude. Well, not return our gratitude, express our gratitude by giving some nice bonus content. We just dropped today a deep dive into Lost Highway. I got the Lynch gang back together, Jesse Graham and Natalia Washington.
The Lynch gang sounds like a terrible moniker.
It is, I know. And there's so many good ones if you're Lynch fans, but they are all taken by other people. In any case, that was fun. And you once a month you'll get audio of Ask Us Anything bonus episodes as well. You and I are going to do another bonus episode. Just finished a rewatch with Lie of the Shield season 1.
Ooh,
we could do something.
Let's
on the
do
Shield.
that.
Yeah, that would be fun. So.
Yeah.
And then at $5 or so $1 and up, you get Dave's Beats and ad-free episodes. $2 and up, you get bonus episodes, all bonus episodes, plus those monthly Ask Us Anything audio. $5 and up, you get access to our Brothers Karamazov series, 5-part episode that we are very happy with and proud of. And you get to vote on a listener-selected episode. And finally, at $10 and up, you get to ask us anything every single month. You can leave us a question, and we have so far at least answered all questions that have been posed to us. You can and you'll get a video of us replying to you, plus the audio as well. So thank you to everybody so much for your support. It means so much to us. Let's get to the main segment.
All right, Tamler, let's get to our main topic for this episode, which is something that we have talked about maybe on a few podcasts, but never a full episode, and that is the concept of flow. But flow is a concept that was developed initially by the person with the most challenging name in all of psychology, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Csikszentmihalyi. That's, just remember, chicks sent me high. It doesn't make sense as a sentence, but he was Hungarian. He passed away actually last year. But here we go.
Remember.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Csikszentmihalyi.
Chick sent me high. It's like you got someone like in LA just sending you weed.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Csikszentmihalyi was a professor at Claremont, the graduate school in psychology. And he developed this very influential concept of flow as a sort of psychological state that is highly motivating, intrinsically rewarding. And it's one in which sort of your skill level and the challenge of an activity match up perfectly so that you kind of lose yourself in that activity. And we thought it'd be interesting to read the classic paper on this. In fact, I had never read it, even though, I'm sure I read articles on flow. The original article where he lays out the sort of conceptual framework is this great article, I thought, at least, from 1975 called Play and Intrinsic Rewards. So Tamler, had you ever read anything about flow?
It's always been secondhand, Paul's book has a little section on it, and definitely
You read that?
We did an episode on it. Do you remember?
Yeah, right.
We read every word of it. Some Buddhist Zen inspired books talk about the concept itself and refer to Csikszentmihalyi. That's good. Yeah. In their work, but I'd never really read this. I even have the book Flow, but it's always been such a intuitively appealing concept.
Totally.
I'm so glad we decided to just dive into some of the stuff he actually said about it, because it lived up to my fairly high expectations.
Yeah, I highly recommend reading this article too. So, flow for me had been this concept that was around already, obviously, when I was in graduate school, but it had kind of become like a cottage industry of folks who were interested in it. And I get why now. I understand a bit more why. So like the psychology of sports, especially, there's just a lot of productivity, that kind of people who are like into things like growth, and
everything good gets debased,
Exactly. It's probably like corporate training sessions on how to improve flow in your employees.
That's capitalism. We'll just take and especially with flow, where the whole point of it is that it's not like that.
Right. It's just pure intrinsic motivation is like central to.
Yeah. And I like that he talks about that, right? Like he says even psychologists, when they're studying play, because actually initially this starts out being about play, they usually focus on play as a means to some other end, but not as a process which is important to understand in its own right. Ethological psychologists will say play allows us to experiment with like all these kinds of behaviors in a non-threatening setting, and then learn by trial and error without paying too high a price for errors. So it's like everything has to be productive, like a means to some sort of end for the concept to be something that you can study. I think it's more just part of just that Western attitude of everything is a means to an end. Everything is instrumental.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like what can play do for my child? Right? Like, will it make her smarter? Will it make her, outcompete her whatever classmates? Yeah, right. I think it's like this fundamental mistaken levels of analysis that psychologists should know better than to do, but they often don't. Which is, it makes, as a psychological state, it's to me true and reasonable to say that it is rewarding unto itself, and you don't need a theory about why you and I would want to do something that gets us into a flow state, because it's just rewarding in and of itself. But then, of course, you can ask the question, so like, why would creatures like us have that? And that becomes an evolutionary question. I suppose you want to,
which is fine,
it's
right?
Fine. It's just a different question.
It's a different question, exactly. It's not going to be helpful in studying the phenomenon itself,
right?
And what makes it so pleasurable, and what are the conditions that allow you to achieve it.
So this article that in 1975 is, I thought, great, because it's just, you don't see people write like this that much anymore. All of the times that we've sort of bitched and moaned about theory and psychology, and we say things like there needs to be more good descriptive work, and we'll talk about sort of like that Ash paper where he makes a call for more of that kind of work, but it's rare to actually talk about a paper that does it. Because they just don't exist. But that's exactly what he does here. He actually starts by saying like, this is going to be a paper where I'm going to try to flesh out this concept of what it means to be in this particular psychological state that is rewarding. There's no need for external incentives that people seem to lose themselves in. And he wants to try to map out the features of those kinds of experiences, independent from like whatever activity people are doing. He wants to provide a more general, broad explanation for what all of these states have in common. And he does it by interviewing people, of all things, and quoting them.
You know what this is like? It's like the more modern, it's not modern day because it's like 50 years ago almost, but like William James.
Yes,
like
exactly. I
you know,
had that
William
same thought when I was reading.
He doesn't interview people, but he just quotes them at length in the same way that Csikszentmihalyi does, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about like the different features of it, right?
Yeah.
Or just I want to read what he says flow denotes, because I think this is the first time he used the term, right?
Yeah, this is where he coins it.
Flow denotes the holistic sensation present when we act with total involvement. It is a kind of feeling after which one nostalgically says that was fun or that was enjoyable. It is the state in which action follows upon action according to an internal logic which seems to need no conscious intervention on our part. We experience it as a unified flowing from one moment to the next in which we feel in control of our actions and in which there is little distinction between self and environment, between stimulus and response, or between past, present, and future. I mean, it's so Zen-like also in terms of, you know, like these are exactly the features of like what, you know, Zen teachings tell us could be just our moment-to-moment life, you know?
Yeah. And he says, so one, that this kind of experience, which he relates to what Maslow referred to as peak experiences, and you know, some other people have touched on it. He says you see it in religious ecstasy sometimes, you see it in sports, you see it in a sort of a variety of activities.
Sex.
Does he say sex?
Yeah.
No, I missed that. I can't believe it. I'm just such a prude. My eyes glossed right over it. 2 points need to be stressed about flow. He says one is that this experience seems to occur only when a person is actively engaged in some form of clearly specified interaction with his environment. It could be primarily physical, emotional, or intellectual, but in each case, the person is able to use some skills in acting on a limited area in his or her environment, and that's therefore dependent on these flow activities. When people describe this thing where they lost themselves for hours engaging in an activity in which they're engaged with the environment physically or intellectually, what is going on? Like, what are the features that those share?
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Actually,
I was just going to go to the first feature.
Yeah, do it.
The first feature is lack of self-consciousness, loss of ego. This was pretty interesting. So he talks about what it means to lose self-consciousness or ego, and he says the self has been traditionally that of an intrapsychic mechanism which mediates between the needs of the organism, like us, and the social demands placed upon it. And the primary function of the self is to integrate one's person's actions with that of others, and hence it is a prerequisite for a social life. And what is lost here is not exactly like loss of self, he says, but of the self-construct, the intermediary between stimulus and response. So essentially that kind of running monologue in your head where you're not just doing the actions, you know, taking in the stimulus, you know, like the challenge, thinking about it, and then performing the action. It's what's lost is that middle part, like the fact that you're thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing it, right?
Yeah. I love that. It's like a lack of meta-awareness. He says a person in flow does not operate with a dualistic perspective. One is very aware of one's actions, but not of the awareness itself. Yeah. And so being consciously aware of something is used often sort of in this interchangeable, confusing way. We're saying it's, you know, you're not blacking out here. What you are is you're just not stepping outside and looking at your awareness.
This is from the book. He says there's an active role from the self, and loss of self-consciousness is how he talks about it in the book, is not a loss of self and certainly not a loss of consciousness, but rather only a loss of the consciousness of the self. What slips below the threshold of awareness is the concept of self, the information we use to represent who we are. But being able to forget temporarily who we are seems to be very enjoyable. And it's true, right?
It's absolutely true. Yeah.
It's like when you know, sports is a great go-to example. When you're playing sports, you are just focused on the task at hand, and you're just, whatever your problems are, whatever bullshit is going on with your life is irrelevant to you. Like, it doesn't, in that way, your identity has been just pared down to exactly what it is that you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the extent that it's interrupted by that popping in of the self, it's bad for your performance, for your happiness. So he says typically a person can maintain a merged awareness with, I love the notion of merged awareness with their actions.
Yeah.
For only short periods, interspersed with interludes in which flow is broken by the actor's adoption of an outside perspective. These interruptions occur when questions flash through the actor's mind, such as, am I doing well? Or what am I doing here? Or should I be doing this? When one is in a flow episode, these questions simply do not come to mind. And and that does capture it so nicely. And as we'll get into as we keep reading this, that it takes time to get to that point for any activity. Because at first, when if you're just learning to play basketball, that's all that's going on. It's like, am I doing this right? Or think about driving a stick shift. Like, what's the next thing that I need to do? That meta awareness is sort of actually driving all of your actions.
It has to get to a point where it's somewhat habitual, so that you don't need to be kind of running through your mind, using your mind to kind of run through the rules or the strategies or something like that. It really is something where that information has been internalized and now is being reflected in your actions, but not in your conscious deliberation. Which is interesting. It's an interesting kind of paradoxical state that part of what defines it is you're not aware that you're in a flow state.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you were aware that I'm in a flow state now, that means you're not, right? Because now you're already starting to think about at this meta level about what it is that you're doing, rather than just doing it. And still that requires a lot of information processing, and often at the highest skill levels that you're capable of. But so there's I don't know what that says about us.
It's like we're if there's an activity in which you can get into a flow state, it's like getting into an experience machine. You step in knowing that for the next few hours you'll be in this state, but you're never going to be making decisions about whether or not to keep engaging in that task. There's this whole strain of thought in psychology, and I guess in some existential philosophy, that forgetting of self is something that we are primally drawn to. And that, in moments of sort of collective ecstasy of religious rituals, or even rock concerts, or even sex, that what we're enjoying is that we don't have that. We're not stepping outside, and that meta awareness is gone. And maybe that's why we drink and do drugs as well. It's always struck me as something that seems true, but not necessarily positive. It's never framed. It's mostly framed as an escape. In a lot of that work. But here Csikszentmihalyi is saying but there are these instances of actual mastery over the environment where you lose the self, and that these seem like it's like a constructive way of losing the self. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess there is something slightly pessimistic about the fact that we're happiest when we're not in our own company, when we're not. And I think some people, it's really unbearable to have this kind of constant doubt and questioning and running monologue in your head. And for other people, it's less, it's less anxiety or stress or, depression inducing, but it's still not as good as when you're just doing the thing and you are out of it, and all your doubts and questions and desires and hopes and dreams, it doesn't matter. You're now just this thing that you're doing.
It took this, I think this is it's such an obvious thing that I hadn't thought of, that I was embarrassed about it. But I was talking to somebody who has severe social anxiety, and they were describing it as constantly questioning everything that they're saying. So the moment they said something, they'd be like, was that a stupid thing to say?
Yep.
And I thought to myself, well, fuck, no wonder you have like severe social anxiety. Cause I remember the first few times I ever got high off of weed, like one of the times my parents called and I was talking to them and every sentence that came out of my mouth,
Right.
I was like, oh shit, did that sound high? Oh shit, did
Yeah.
that sound high? And I was like, now I see how intrusive that kind of social anxiety can be, where you're constantly,
Right.
because if you're, maybe this doesn't count as flow. I don't know if Csikszentmihalyi would count it, but interacting in a social environment, like I'm comfortable just talking and not
Yeah.
thinking about what I'm talking. That's why we can do a podcast like this, right? Like if we were constantly thinking about what
We wouldn't say like 10% of the shit that we say.
I know, it's crucial that we forget certain things in order to have these conversations.
I mean, I think that relationships are a great example of like the better the relationship is, the more you're in a flow state when you're with the person. Like one great sign of how good a friend somebody is if you can go like a year or two without seeing them.
Yeah.
And then when you see them, it's like you're like nothing, like no time has passed. You're immediately losing yourself in your jokes and your conversations. But then there are other kinds of interactions that you have where it's like, yeah, you're thinking of it because you don't know like if like what the lines are, what the things that they are going to be offended by, or you have some goal. It becomes means end based rather than just the intrinsic pleasure of hanging out with your like really good friends.
Yeah, that's the difference between feeling drained at the end of an interaction
Yes.
and feeling energized.
Exactly.
We have podcast episodes where we feel energized at the end of the interactions, sometimes more than other times. But
Yeah, like not this one, but
yeah, this one's terrible. So these are some quotes from the interviews that they conducted. An outstanding chess player says, "The game is a struggle and the concentration is like breathing. You never think of it. The roof could fall in and if it missed you, you would be unaware of it." Or an expert rock climber, "You are so involved in what you're doing, you aren't thinking of yourself as separate from the immediate activity. You don't see yourself as separate from what you are doing." And, some of these things are solitary activities and some of them aren't.
yeah.
And I wonder, what we were just describing is that being in unison with someone else where you are in such sync that it's like it's not even clear whose idea, in
Right.
memory, it's not even clear who said what.
Can I say one super interesting thing? So when he talks about the conditions for loss of, self-consciousness, one great way to bring this kind of state on is competition, because it gives you kind of a restricted set of rules, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to, the boundaries. He says 2 terms, this is from the book, describing states of social pathology apply to conditions that make flow difficult to experience: anomie and alienation. Anomie, literally lack of rules, is the name the French sociologist Émile Durkheim gave to a condition in society in which norms of behavior had become muddled. So, first of all, I didn't know that anomie was literally lack of rules. That's super interesting. But that's the, like when it's no longer clear what's permitted and what's not, and when it's uncertain what public opinion values, behavior becomes erratic, meaningless, and it's just so easy. This is me now, not him. It's just so easy to overthink everything because the possibilities of what you could say or could do are endless, right? And that's
Yeah.
when you get that kind of anxiety thing, and it's like when you're acting within fairly narrow constraints, that still allow you the freedom to excel within them. Like that's when you're gonna lose yourself. But if you can just do anything, that's when you're gonna start.
That's such a good point. And I think we've talked about something like this in the context of creativity, but never
exactly.
put it that way. Like where if you have constraints, it just brings out this creativity. I hadn't thought about the one of the reasons being that when you have sort of unlimited access to whatever, a lot of your time is spent making meta decisions about what you should do next.
Right.
Whereas if there's rules to this shit or constraints, then those decisions are just clearer, right? In basketball, you can't just pick up the ball and run, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to think about what, there's only a certain set of moves, even if it's like obviously like a gajillion moves. But I imagine mountain climbing, right? That there is a constraint in that there might be a number of options about which way to go on the rock face, but it's certainly not infinite.
No, and it's pretty narrow kind of things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
And like, and the key is everyone agrees upon the rules, whether it's just you and the rock, or it's like you're playing a sport. Like, I think in the paper, he says like the self is primarily about like negotiating these rules or trying to figure out what the rules are. That's something that the self or the ego does. Like when you're with your old friends, even though there are no rules, you know what's the limits are, you know, like what you can say, what you can't say, and that's part of what makes it so comfortable. Whereas you're just unsure in other kinds of conversations, like what the boundaries are. And part of your interaction involves sort of sussing that out, which is what brings the self or the self-consciousness back into play.
Right. Yeah. So the next feature of flow is this centering of attention. The merging of action and awareness is made possible by a centering of attention on a limited stimulus field. To ensure that people will concentrate on their actions, potentially intruding stimuli must be kept out of attention. Some writers have called this processing a narrowing of consciousness, a quote, giving up the past and the future. One respondent, a university science professor who climbs rocks, phrased it as follows. I love this quote. When I start on a climb, it is as if my memory input has been cut off. All I can remember is the last 30 seconds, and all I can think ahead is the next 5 minutes.
Right.
That's what a crippling amnesic would have. But in the context of doing something,
that's like Memento guy. Right?
Exactly, Memento guy. Yeah, but Memento guy, doesn't have that constant insertion of the questions like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
It's a constant flow state. So I want to talk to you about this in the context of sports. Have you ever seen this clip of Kobe Bryant, who Benny would consider one of the more focused NBA players?
Yes.
And Chris Rock, he's sitting on the bench and Chris Rock is next to him. And Chris Rock is trying to say something to him. Like you could see in the clip, Chris Rock is clearly talking to Kobe. And Kobe doesn't even acknowledge him. And I remember first seeing that and thinking, well, I mean, Kobe could be kind of a dick, but, Chris Rock's trying to talk to you on the bench. I saw an interview where Kobe was saying he has zero memory of that at all. He said, I had no idea he was talking to me because he was even on the bench so focused on the dynamics of the game that it never entered his awareness.
Yeah. Like you've narrowed down the possibilities of what matters to you or of like what you're going to pay any attention to. Because, like if Chris Rock is talking to you, that's like going to steal your attention and you're just like too focused, right? Like what if he says something about your wife? Like what if he makes a joke about some condition she has?
I mean, that's why it's been sort of ruined, that slap, because now comedians have to be thinking that was a clear case of rule violation, in that now a comedian is going to have to think, like, what if what I say is going to cause someone to come up to the stage and slap me? It's hard to get into flow when you're worried about getting slapped.
The composer says, I get quite oblivious to my surroundings. I think that the phone could ring, the doorbell could ring, the house could burn down or something like that. When I start working, I really do shut out the world. But once I stop, I can let it back in again.
It's so interesting that is pleasurable as a state.
Yeah.
But it really is.
And this is where he says the rules of games define what the relevant stimuli are and exclude everything else as irrelevant. So you have rules, you have competition. You're just motivated to pay more attention when you could lose money. And it's not about the money, as he quotes Dostoevsky saying, like, it's the money has nothing to do with it, but it's like, I think you need that with, say, poker, which I can get in a flow state playing poker. You need the money not because, like, the money is the meaningful thing, but because it provides, like, the constraint
feedback
of the game. Yeah, it's feedback. Exactly.
Right. It's telling you how good you're doing. I mean, that's why rock climbing is so freaky to me, or some kinds of rock climbing, because the rules are just like physics and life. Right. Like the very real constraint is that if you mess up, the consequences are that you get severely injured, or you lose money. You're, skin in the game. But that is serving as a constraint and obviously focusing your attention. So then the next he says is loss of ego, which
right.
Seems
we're
very
kind
similar.
of talking about
because if you're centered your attention so much, and your action and awareness are so merged, then it's hard to have too much room.
But this is where, like, a lot of that stuff that we were talking about at the beginning, I kind of bumped it up front. But this is where that quote about the self-construct is between. One thing we didn't mention about it is it's also like it fucks with time, right?
Yeah,
like he quotes a chess player saying, like, time passes 100 times faster. In this sense, it resembles a dream state. A whole story can unfold in seconds, it seems. Your body is non-existent, but actually your heart pumps like mad to supply the brain. And it's really the goal of so much practice is to just merge your overthinking mind with the environment and to get to a point where you're letting go of all the things that sort of define you so that you can just be part of what it is that you're doing.
This episode of Very Bad Wizards is brought to you by a new sponsor, Ren.co. Ren is a startup that's making it easy for everyone to make a meaningful difference in the climate crisis. Right now, they're focused on monthly subscriptions where you can calculate your carbon footprint, then offset it by supporting awesome, amazing climate projects that do things like plant trees, protect rainforests, and remove CO2 from the sky. Their goal is to unlock the collective action of millions of individuals to drive the systemic change needed to end the climate crisis. Now, if you're like me, you're worried about the climate crisis, but you're paralyzed by this sort of inability to know what you can do personally. My default strategy is just usually to blame corporations and then go on doing what I normally do. But there are ways, there are solutions, and Ren.co is one of those. When you sign up for Ren, your money will go toward projects that are designed to end the climate crisis. If you're one of those people who thinks that the answer will come from technology, that is, technologies that are developed to improve the environment, well, there is a whole group of projects that Ren.co supports that are designed, that are directed at that solution. If you think that the best way to enforce climate change is to put pressure on corporations and governments, they actually have a whole section of projects that are involved in policy, where they support leading policy groups that push for changes to economies, agriculture, infrastructure, and the power grid. Basically, every system that influences our planet's climate. So, signing up for Ren is an easy way to do something meaningful about the climate crisis. They're very transparent about where your money goes. You can actually, when you log in and you sign up with them, you'll see exactly where each of your dollars goes, down to the coordinates of the trees that are planted. It's going to take all of us to end the climate crisis. Do your part today by signing up for Ren. Go to ren.co/VBW, and when you do, if you sign up, they'll plant 10 extra trees in your name. That's WREN.co/VBW. Start making a difference. Our thanks to Ren for sponsoring this episode of Very Bad Wizards. Sometimes I'm tempted to think of, I don't know, practicing a skill or doing something really because of the end state that it will produce, where you will have said, I won this game or I climbed this mountain. But it really is true that the enjoyment comes from the participation. So, and that calming down or quieting of the ego from intruding is, when I think about it, why, like I picked up a deck of cards, 6 years ago now, just to try to learn sleight of hand stuff. And I realized that I was just using it as a way to calm that voice, to get myself into a state where that constant practice, it's not about whether or not I could perform a trick at the end of the day. It's just about developing a skill, having it unfold in this way where you're challenging yourself and you're controlling. Well, this gets to the other one, the control of action and environment. Those small ways in which you can exert control in this, albeit constrained situation, you're exerting control over the environment. That just feels good. And one of the reasons it really does feel good is because you're not thinking of other shit.
Yeah, because you have enough to think about in the activity itself, even though you're not aware of thinking about it. A big flow activity for me is scuba diving.
Huh.
And I've always sort of wondered it's so beautiful to do. So that part is obviously But one thing that this paper made me understand is part of what's so flow-like about scuba diving is there are a lot of things you have to do, like they're not hard. You get in the water, there's certain things now that you have to do, and you have to equalize, you have to get a kind of good balance in the water, and there's all sorts of things you have to do on the boat, and you have to check, and you have a buddy, and you have hand signals with your buddy. So you're like constantly doing stuff, but in a way that instead of distracting you from the beauty, actually lets you fully take in the beauty or become like a part of the beauty. Because it occupies you just enough so that now you're just fully involved. In a way that, like, although I love hiking doesn't do that because there's nothing to do while you're hiking except walk, But I think scuba diving, because it has all these other things, provides the perfect amount of just stuff to occupy your brain. Whereas hiking, you really can get lost in thought because there's nothing to occupy the self or the ego at that point.
Yeah, that's right. This gets to the, like, in this particular paper, he doesn't talk too much about skill. I mean, he gets to it when he sort of formally presents what gets you into flow. But as I was saying earlier, it takes time for any activity to be able to get you into a state of flow because you have to work through the part where all of those things aren't constant, like, second guessing things that you're doing. Like, I imagine that there are people who might never get into flow states because they've never had the time or taken the time to acquire the skills. Now, I don't know. I mean, maybe just by dint of being a human being on this earth, there will be something. But it really is the case that you need to put enough time into something to even get close to flow. And there are so many more things that I've given up on before being able to get there.
So I'm not sure if I agree. I think that is a characteristic of a lot of flow states and maybe some of the best and most reliable ones. But I think you get like mini flow from like Wordle and Dirtle and Quirtle and Octurtle, those Octurtles sometimes where it's like everything's just coming to you. You just know the word, like you're barely even thinking about it. Like, but we didn't have to spend that much time doing that.
Well, that gets to the question of whether those are true flow states.
So do you not think that they are?
I think they might be, but I think that what you're ignoring is probably the sheer amount of time it took us to get to the point where we can play those games. So it's more like that some of the work has been is done by the game creator in tapping into these skills that we already have.
Right.
And so they've made it easy for us to use our skills and abilities. Like, it's like the first time you play a brand new game.
Oh yeah.
But the whole Wordle thing, he did create something that taps into something that we already have. I don't know.
That's fair. Right. I think that's true. But I think some things are much harder to get to the point where you're going to experience a flow state of it. Like, like for me, like piano or something like that, getting to a point where playing piano is a flow state would have taken me probably like more than the time I'm going to live on the earth.
Some stuff takes years. It takes years and years.
And some stuff just doesn't. Like, when you're a kid, just playing is doing that.
Right.
You're playing already. Like, you know how to do that. Like
just one rule, like friends. Tag, like, and all of the tacit rules that are involved in it can get you into flow state. Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny because I look back on the particular choices that people make in terms of the skills and hobbies that they develop. And, some people like model trains, and it's easy to sort of, when you're a kid, you're just like, it's easy to mock some people for some of the choices that they make. But God damn it, if those people don't seem happy when they're doing that,
Exactly.
Like, they're just in this amazing flow state when they're putting together little models and painting, like Bobby Bacala on The Sopranos.
Right. With the trains. Oh, poor Bobby Bacala. He has a lot of stuff he probably wants to forget, but and that's a way of doing that in a way that doesn't. So one thing he doesn't distinguish, but it's probably worth distinguishing, is the other way you can do that is just zone out and watch like shitty, or not like even shitty, but like, okay, there's a way of just, all right, I'm going to watch like 30 Law and Orders back to back to forget about my problems.
Yeah. Well, and
this isn't that.
No, it's not. And that And I think that sort of passivity is excluded in his definition of it. And I don't know how intentional it was, but skill and challenge and acting on the environment are central to the concept of flow. And again, we did talk about shitty flow when we were talking with Paul, and it seems like those things might mimic what you get is some of the features were like you could have loss of self, loss of ego. Yeah. But I don't think it's a recipe for, because I think Csikszentmihalyi here is giving a recipe for a happy life, like a happy, meaningful life. Like at the end of those binge watching Law and Order, you don't feel good. At least I don't feel
fulfilled.
Yeah.
No.
It's not there's something that is so deeply rewarding about mastery. The challenge, the opponent, which makes it clear to me why evolutionary psychologists might want to think that talk about it in evolutionary terms. I think that's fair because there is it's good to have that desire to have mastery over your environment.
Control as a feature of flow implies that it's not just passive.
Yeah.
Like you're watching a Law and Order, you don't have any control over, like you're just passively receiving it. Whereas flow experiences involve you interacting with the environment.
Yeah. And that feeling is so great when you're practicing something. It's so hard. You're practicing it. And that very first time where you did it and you weren't having to think too much about it just happened. It almost feels like incredible that we're capable of acquiring skills like that. I can think of the first time a particular card sleight actually worked, like, because at first I would think this is actually physically impossible. Or Csikszentmihalyi talks about this dancer.
So this is a dancer says, a strong relaxation and calmness comes over me. I have no worries of failure. What a powerful and warm feeling it is. I want to expand, hug the world. I feel enormous power to affect something of grace and beauty, which again is not the feeling you get when you're just on the internet or watching passively at TV. There's still that kind of antsiness.
Right. Yeah.
It's not relaxing in the way that when you're doing these kinds of things and you're good at them. It's incredible also that we just don't try to set up our life so that we do way more of that.
I really do think it's because it's hard to get there and we don't have that much time to work on the kinds of skills that will get us there in this deeply rewarding way. I think.
Thanks, capitalism.
Or
just life.
It
might just be life. The next feature, he says, another quality of the experience is that it usually contains coherent, non-contradictory demands for action and provides clear, unambiguous feedback to a person's actions. That's so key.
Yeah.
These components of flow, like the preceding ones, are made possible by limiting awareness to a restricted field of possibilities. I think that's got to be like one of the most essential aspects of all of what makes flow states conducive. Like when you're doing magic, right? Like there's not that many things you can do to make the trick work.
Absolutely.
There's just
and when and when it works very clearly, it works very clearly.
Exactly. Right. Like if we're all like, how the fuck did you do that?
I really like this idea. We're harping on it, but I really like this idea of this constraining possibilities. In my mind I was thinking it's the difference between choosing which game to play and choosing what to do when you're playing the game. Like there really is two different modes of being. Like if it's a game that I'm good at, what can be hard is deciding which game you want to play to begin with.
Exactly. If you've already decided on the game, then you're now just playing the game and that's it. If you have to think about what game should we play a game or should we watch TV? Or should we just sit outside and talk? Or should we all of a sudden, that's too many possibilities, no flow state.
That's why some of the most anxiety inducing situations is when you don't know what game you're playing. Like think about that socially. It really is the case where you have not come to a consensus with other people about which game it is you're playing, and whether that's because you're in a different culture or these are new people that you haven't interacted with yet, or it's a new phase of a relationship and you're not quite sure, whether these kinds of jokes are okay. Like all of those, all life is full of those uncertain moments. Life is primarily those uncertain moments. And like you were saying, that's where the ego, that's the hard work of reflecting and deliberating and anxiously wanting to know what other people might be thinking. And then when we get these moments where everybody knows the rules, like, okay, that's why people, I think, say things like, once I step on the court, you leave everything behind. That the end of that section says, in other words, the flow experience differs from awareness in everyday reality because it contains ordered rules which make action and the evaluation of action automatic and hence unproblematic. When contradictory actions are made possible, as for instance when cheating is introduced into a game, the self reappears again to negotiate between the conflicting definitions of what needs to be done, and the flow is interrupted. Yeah, it's like, wait, you can't. There's no crying in baseball.
This can be broadened so much. That's what I loved about the thing about enemy. It's like you see this just delicate balance between when there are overly restrictive rules, which limits your autonomy in ways that can be oppressive. But then there's no rules in culture and life, which then also has this problem of, well, now the possibilities are endless. I thought about like millennials like not trying to decide whether to have kids or not. Like it's good that you can decide not whether to have kids. There shouldn't be pressure on people to just keep overpopulating the planet. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like that didn't used to be something that occupied people's attention and deliberation. Everyone just tried to have kids, and that was that. That's what's expected of you. That's what you did. And now that this is something that you have to do like a cost benefit analysis for, that's just another element of like stress. When the game is picked, better or for worse, but again, that can be oppressive. It can be terrible, but it's also what can be great. So it's just a question of what the best game and rules are, Right,
absolutely. The task of choosing what the best rules are is daunting, and I think that's what you're saying is actually like a good explanation for why traditionalism, for instance, is attractive. And so, I think we can be a bit unfair to people who have this strong desire to maintain the social roles that they were brought up with. I mean, as you say, some of those are oppressive, and so we should obviously change them. But there is this freedom from knowing. I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff if I know that I'm going to be this.
You just go to the KKK rally because that's what everybody does.
Like, down with the Jews, right? If I have to now decide like which races should be allowed to have freedom, that's daunting for me. I don't want to do it.
We're definitely entering Substack Starters territory with your defensive trads. And no, but I think that's right. Like this can be broadened outwards. Like it's not flow exactly, to have certain things settled, but it's the same kind of idea of, like that nausea that Sartre talks about. The possibilities of your action are endless, and your decision will be a big part of defining who you are. That's an anxiety-producing state.
Yeah. So there is like there's the reduction of friction in narrowing of possibilities. But what I really do like about what this notion of flow is adding is the development of skill. This state that requires increasing skill and increasing challenge.
Yeah. The final characteristic is that autotelic nature, which is when you stroke your own penis.
So, is telic your nickname for your job?
That's what I call my penis. Telic. Hey, Telic, are you ready for another round? You want to go?
It is funny though that that Csikszentmihalyi is having to fight against people who think that things can't be intrinsically meaningful. So he goes to some length to be like, look, obviously there are these autotelic activities. Practically every writer who has dealt with play has remarked on the autotelic nature of this activity. And so he quotes the Bhagavad Gita, "Let the motive be in the deed and not in the event. Be not one whose motive for action is the hope of reward." And he talks about a poet talking about rock climbing. The mystique of rock climbing is climbing. You get to the top of the rock, glad it's over, but really wish it would go forever. The justification of climbing is climbing, like the justification of poetry is writing. You don't conquer anything except things in yourself. The act of writing, justifies poetry.
The purpose of the flow is to keep on
Yeah.
flowing, not looking for a peak or utopia, but staying in the flow. It's not a moving up, but a continuous flowing. You move up only to keep the flow going. There's no possible reason for climbing except the climbing itself. It is a self-communication. You're not doing it for anything other than the doing
Yeah.
of it at that moment in the present. And the only reason you would want to get better at something is so that the flow could keep continuing, not for some other end.
Yeah, absolutely. And being like the best in the world at something, those people are constantly on the lookout for somebody or something that can keep challenging them.
I'm so jealous of those other podcasts that still have something to shoot for. But we've like perfected.
There's nothing more than 5 stars.
Exactly.
It ends at 5. After outlining these conditions for what makes a flow state, Csikszentmihalyi he proposes it's sort of a preliminary systematizing of what this looks like. So he says,
But this is my kind of system.
Yeah.
It's not like a complicated model.
no, there's not a whole bunch of boxes and arrows. It's elegant. It's actually elegant. Really, flow is the balance between having skill and the right kind of challenge. If something is too far beyond your skill, the ego would keep popping in and telling you like you got to what you have to do to improve. It's just not fun. It's not flowy.
Right. It can be either just worrying because you're just thinking about it, whether you're doing it right, or at the extreme end, if the challenges are so hard, but your skills are not anywhere close to being able to meet them, then that's anxiety producing.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you are so good at something and the challenge is low, then that's just boring. Right.
The more that's true, so why do you think that is? That the more that's true, he says, then you go back to anxiety again. So anxiety is on the extremes of both ends of this.
It's that antsiness. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah. You're not occupied anymore. When you're so not occupied, because your cognitive abilities are not being exercised in any way, it's the self-consciousness
Creeping
comes
back
in a big way. And if
'Cause
it
it
comes
can,
back
right,
in
'cause it-
too hot, if it comes back in too strong, then it's going to be that's anxiety producing, is to have too much consciousness of self.
right. It's like, it's like not even engaging in it in the activity. You might as well. The ego has all of the same ability to just pop right back into your mind because you don't need to focus.
If I have a criticism of this model, and also a slight resistance to when you keep emphasizing that everything is about developing the skills and the times that it takes to develop the skill, I think that's true of a lot and probably most flow activities. It feels like, and especially if we're talking about social relationships or just being with family that you love, friends that you feel comfortable around, that seems to me to be also like flow experience, but not involving skills, unless skills now just, social interaction or something like that. But it's really more just the experience of being with these people that allows the loss of ego. It allows all these things. It doesn't seem to me to map much on skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. I would just say that then that's not flow. I don't know what Csikszentmihalyi would say, where you could be like, no, there are other ways to both have like a purposeful set of activities where the ego dissolves a bit. But that's not what he's talking about.
But I think phenomenologically, it's a similar kind of experience, I guess.
Where you
or
lose
if
the
not,
time.
just
Like you lose the time.
yeah, you lose the time. It feels easy. Everything comes natural. You don't feel like, even just playing a game that doesn't require a ton of skill, but like playing it with these people that you love. And I don't know, like I feel like in the book he talks about this to some extent, but I only really skimmed through that. But I think he wouldn't mind calling some of those experiences flows.
But I've thought of this before because because of the kinds of experiences like when we were talking about browsing Reddit or something, can get you lost. Like my fear would be that he would sort of call everything flow. But
I don't think that's an analogy. Like getting lost on Reddit isn't like hanging out with like family and friends that you love.
But you could say you lose yourself, you lose a sense of time, like you want to keep doing it.
But it has a couple of them maybe, but it's not like intrinsically rewarding. It's not.
So taking this paper at face value, where he's saying like that he is trying to describe actions in which you're engaging with the environment at a particular level of skill, then I guess I would say either there is a swath of things like in this fuzzy category of what you might call flow, where it's like there's never going to be some sort of necessary and sufficient thing. That there are some states that are flowy in this way and some states that are flowy in that way. And his little graph of skill and challenge maybe doesn't perfectly capture family interactions, and that's fine. It's just like a flow of a different sort. I think he would say either that or focus particularly on skillful behavior, and maybe family interactions involve a kind of skill that you're just not aware that you have.
Yeah, I just think you could make a slightly broader model that captured both the social flow and skillful flow, but left out because it's phenomenologically different, spending 3 hours on the internet.
Yeah. It is a good question, though. I was trying to think what would be the kind of family interaction in which you weren't feeling flow. So now imagine all of those things are going on in your familial interaction. You're having all of these. What would pop you out of that? What would bring your ego back into it?
Like a kind of tense conflict. Like when relationships are going bad, you start to do a lot of the things that you start to do when your skill level isn't matching the, like you start overthinking things. You start
it reminds me of the somebody cheating discussion that he has in the paper, where what pops you out is that somebody is like not going by the rules. And that, I think that does capture some features of a relationship. Yeah.
Right. And so you now have to renegotiate rules or something, or like figure out what they are now. And that's the key, like in skillful stuff, like that's all settled. Yeah. And now you just work within that.
Like stepsister, I don't think we're supposed to be doing this.
But maybe we are.
Renegotiate so I can make some.
Is that the ultimate flow activity?
It's better than autotelic.
Yeah. Step sibling, like sexual exploration.
Oh God, I hope people know that you're making Pornhub references.
You were the one that brought it up. So
that I'm making.
This is your Substack.
An analysis of relationship flow.
It's like you could do that graph, but it's like, step is the ideal, like just full on like brother or sister that gets you into the worry or anxiety, And then if you're not related at all, that's boredom and then ultimately anxiety.
Yes, I know. All right, you popped me out of my flow for this episode. And now I have to worry about whether we violated any rules.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. I guess that was the only thing I wanted. The only last thing I wanted to say. Do you have any?
Yeah, what's funny is that there's like 30, 40 years of research that might say something about the questions that we raised. But that's why this is an episode about a classic paper, because we don't have to worry about all of the progress that people have made toward answering these questions.
Totally. Well, the challenge of editing this particular episode now is too high for my skills, and I am in the anxiety territory. So,
all right.
But that's my problem, not yours. Join us next time on Very Bad Wizards.
The Maiden Boss has spoken! Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man! Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man.
just a very bad wizard.